Hello learners, welcome back to a course on learning and development in organization. In this particular session, we'll look into the second part of human resource management strategy. If you remember, in the first part, we had looked into how we can optimize HR functions based on the alignment of individual goals with the organizational objectives. We have a slight modification here, which we'll discuss in the second model. I'm Dr. Ibrahim Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now, when you look into strategic human resource management and human resource management as a concept per se, we'll understand, and this particular session will go around the theme, our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of plan. There is no other route to success. So if you think that there is some shortcut, you don't need to plan, you can just come up and pull up something, it won't happen. So necessarily, you will get this understanding once you complete the session that essentially our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of plan. Let's understand this second model, which is called as best practice approach. This is not the best fit approach. This is the best practice approach. Let's look into that in greater detail. Now, unlike the previous model, if you ask me, the best practice approach is all about universal HR practices that lead to high organizational performance. So you look into the best practice approach, you'll see that when you are looking into high organizational performance or increased employee engagement, long-term business sustainability, what you come across is this universal or universally effective HR practice. So unlike the best fit approach, which tailors HR policies to the specific needs of an organization, which you have seen in the previous session, the best practice approach suggests that a set of standardized HRM practices can be applied across all industries and businesses to achieve the optimal results. You have standardized HR practices. You also focus on employee well-being. One of the key aspects of the best practice approach is its emphasis on employee well-being specifically. You look into typical aspects where organizations prioritize fair compensation, job security, and continuous professional development. They experience higher job satisfaction, they experience increased motivation and have improved productivity. Also, there's an alignment with organizational performance. Best practice HRM ensures that HR strategies contribute directly to business success and operational efficiency. And finally, you have emphasis on competitive advantage. Companies that adopt the best practice approach often experience better talent acquisition. They have improved retention rates and higher employee performance, if you ask me. So basically, it is different from the best fit model. As I've explained, it's widely adopted in successful organizations, be it Google, Southwest Airlines, etc. Now, let's look into the key principles of best practice. When we look into the key principles of best practice, you see that there is a foundation for high performance HR strategies, high commitment work systems, HCWS. The best practice approach in HRM is built on a set of key principles that ensure effective workforce management and overall business success. You have employee security associated with it, where job stability is a crucial factor in employee satisfaction and long-term commitment. So when employees feel secure in their roles, they are more motivated, engaged and productive. You also look into employee engagement and development per se, where people are more concerned and they prioritize employment, they prioritize the job, they prioritize the work over anything. Then you have selective hiring, recruiting the right talent is vital for building a strong workforce. So the best practice approach emphasizes competency-based selection methods that assess a candidate's skills, experience, and alignment with organizational values. Then there are self-managed teams, which are autonomous and collaborative teams that are key drivers of innovation and efficiency. So encouraging self-managed teams allows employees to take ownership of their work, make independent decisions, and contribute to organizational success without excessive supervision. Then there are policies that standardized HR policies focus on, which is excellence. You look into typical aspects of continuous performance management. Something like high pay based on performance or extensive training and development, continuous learning and professional development are essential for maintaining a skilled and competitive workforce. Organizations that invest in employee training, they ensure that the teams stay updated with industry trends, technological advancements and best practices. So if you ask me, you see these key principles of best practices, you see that there is a reduction of status differences. A workplace with minimal hierarchical barriers, if you ask me, fosters inclusivity and collaboration. So the best practice approach promotes a culture where employees and management interact openly, breaking down traditional power structures. Then there is sharing of information. Sharing of information is pretty much clear and non-vague. So transparency in organizational decision making builds trust and strengthens employee engagement. So companies that keep employees informed about business goals, performance metrics and strategic changes fosters a sense of inclusion and alignment with company objectives. Then you look into high performance HRM framework. You look into structured approach to maximize workforce efficiency. You have typical ability enhancing HPHRP, the human resource practices specifically. Then there is something called as collective efficacy, specific to the organization, specific to the individuals involved within the organizations. So this high performance human resource practices typically give way to this high collective efficacy. You also look into motivation enhancing policies typically, where you have an employee-centric work environment. You have typical alignment, strategic alignment with business goals, where a well-designed HRM framework ensures that all HR policies, including workforce planning, including talent management and training programs, are aligned with the business growth strategies, where you are having a supportive, inclusive and collaborative workplace culture that is essential for employee satisfaction and retention specifically. When you look into typically the strong leadership and management support, it also gives an opportunity enhancing the HPHRP. So a high performance leadership plays a critical role in guiding, mentoring and motivating employees within a HRM framework altogether. And then you have the team creativity, and most importantly, this team creativity nowadays is all about the data-driven HR decisions that come as a result of modern HRM frameworks that rely on data analytics, employee feedback, and typically the KPIs, key performance indicators, to optimize the workforce strategies. So now let's look into the core components of the best practice model. The first and the foremost will start with recruitment. That's how all the HR functions are chronologically listed. You look into the merit-based hiring approach. It is not that you recruit in bulk. More than that, you select the right candidate for the right job. So when you are looking into merit-based approach, typically, you are looking into the right candidate who fits in based on the expectations you have, based on the knowledge, skills and abilities that that individual brings in, and the task, duties and responsibilities that the job demands. If a proper match is happening, you will have a typical merit-based hiring approach. Then you look into the training and development, you will have investment in employee growth. Now, all the learning and development initiatives, if you ask me, in an organization, within an organization, outside an organization, is all pertaining to the development of the individual, and it is a very fruitful investment, in terms of the development of the employee and consequently the development of the organization. You look into the compensation and benefits stream or vertical, you'll see that competitive salaries and incentives are the outcome. You want your workforce to stay, to retain, to be in the organization and do some productive work. You have to be one of the best payers in industry. You have to match the best payment structures within the industry at least. Otherwise, people will find that this particular job is not rewarding and they'll try to change in the first instance that they get. Then there is this performance management where employee appraisal is linked to motivation. Let's say over the years you're working and you do not have or you do not feel that you are getting the necessary increment or the necessary recognition within the organization, then you feel that this is not the right way, this is not the right approach, or this is not the right organization that I have to be in. So you always try to change your organization. And finally, all this, if you ask me, is based on employee engagement. Encouraging productivity and innovation happens only if the organization creates an environment, what we call as a conducive environment, a psychologically safe environment, where every single individual has the freedom to come up with his own or her own idea, whatever foolish that idea is, whatever the idea might not have the merit in the present day scenario, but you will see that this particular idea will give a lot of possibilities and it has a potential for innovation. So when you are looking into a psychological safe organization and an environment which is not psychologically safe, you will see the distinction. Organization A, which was having psychologically safe environment, is liable to or is more conducive to have a more innovative environment or innovation-friendly work culture. So these are some of the core components of this best practice model which we are discussing. Now let's look into the best practice HRM strategy framework very quickly. When you're looking into this conceptual model, that is strategic HRM practices, knowledge, strategy, firm performance, you'll see that this particular model delineates knowledge strategy and the strategic HRM practices specifically. You'll see that there are typical knowledge strategies where you have consolidators, you have transformers, you have co-investors specifically. You look into structured approach to HR excellence, the best practice HRM strategy framework which provides a systematic approach to implementing HR policies. You have all these typical elements of staffing, specific general training, performance feedback, performance evaluation, reward and compensation, and employee development specifically. So all these aspects. Let's look into the workforce planning and talent acquisition. Identifying and acquiring the right talent is essential for business success. So this framework emphasizes strategic workforce planning to ensure that the HR policies align with the business objectives and market demands. Organizations implement structured hiring processes, including competency-based selection and cultural fit assessments to attract employees who contribute to long-term. You also look into something like employee engagement and job satisfaction. You see that employee engagement plays a vital role in workforce retention and productivity. You have performance management reward system. A structured performance evaluation system is vital to measure the necessary employee contributions accurately. Then you have this L&D integration. That's what the whole discussion is all about. Continuous learning is a fundamental aspect of high performance workforce. So this HRM strategy ensures that the employees receive ongoing training, they receive the leadership development and career progression opportunities. And we see that there is a possibility towards organizational performance being improved. So you'll see all the knowledge strategy, they have a moderation effect, whereas the outcome variables are the financial performance and even the non-economic performance. So this model typically, this conceptual framework typically underscores the relevance of the best practice HRM strategy. Let's look into the 7 best HR practices. We also call them as the Pfeffer's model. Pfeffer's model is all about building a high commitment workforce. So employment security is vital to any individual. Ensuring job stability is essential for reducing employee anxiety and increasing commitment. So employees who feel secure in their roles are more likely to be engaged, they are more likely to be motivated and productive. So organizations that provide long-term employment opportunities foster a sense of loyalty, leading to lower turnover rates and a more stable workforce. You have selective hiring. you look into attracting the right talent is critical for organizational success. So the model emphasizes a rigorous selection process that ensures only the most qualified and the best fit candidates that are hired. You have some self-managed teams. You talk about empowering employees to work in autonomous, goal-oriented teams enhances productivity and innovation. So self-managed teams, if you ask me, promote collaboration, they share responsibility and decentralized decision making, reducing the need for excessive managerial control. Then another significant aspect of the Pfeffer's model is the high pay based on performance. You look into linking compensation to employee performance. It creates a result-driven culture that motivates individuals to excel. So employees are rewarded based on their productivity, contributions and achievements, ensuring that high performers receive financial and professional recognitions. Then there is this extensive training. Continuous learning and skill development are fundamental to maintaining a highly skilled workforce. Organizations invest in leadership programs, technical training and professional development opportunities to help employees stay updated with industry trends and technological advancements. Then you have the reduction of status differences, which minimizes the hierarchical barriers, creating a more inclusive and collaborative work culture. So organizations that typically eliminate excessive managerial privileges, if you ask me, they encourage open communication, they promote equal opportunities, foster a stronger sense of unity among employees. And finally, the last aspect of Pfeffer's model is sharing information. Transparent communication, be it between the co-employees, between the leaders and employees, it builds trust and alignment with the organizational goals. So keeping employees informed about company strategies, about financial performance, key business decisions fosters a sense of involvement. Now let's quickly look into the advantages and disadvantages of this model. As advantages, as we have seen, it looks into higher employee satisfaction and gives a better employee engagement. This particular model focuses on employee well-being, career growth, fair compensation, creating a work environment where employees feel valued. So when organizations prioritize these aspects, employees tend to be more motivated, engaged and loyal to the organization. So a well-designed HR strategy that includes competitive salaries, growth opportunities and supportive workplace policies leads to higher job satisfaction and long-term commitment. You also see increased organizational performance. You look into the productivity, it goes higher. HR best practices such as performance-based incentives, extensive training programs, or what we have discussed just now, self-managed teams, they help employees maximize their efficiency and contribute effectively to the organization. You have lower employee turnover and higher retention. You look into organizations that provide employment security, career development opportunities, or even fair compensation experience, lower turnover rates and better employee retention. So employees inevitably are more likely to stay with the company that invests in the growth and offers stability. You also see some other advantages like stronger organizational culture and collaboration. You also look into improved competitive advantage. The companies that implement the best HR practices attract top-tier talent and gain a positive employer reputation. So organizations that prioritize employee satisfaction and workplace development stand out in the job market, making it easier to recruit skilled professionals. Now, when you look into the disadvantage, please note it has a high implementation cost. Implementing HR best practices involves significant financial investment, particularly in areas like what we have seen, selective hiring or employee training or performance-based compensation. So large corporations may be able to afford these expenses, if you ask me, but small and mid-sized businesses may struggle with budget constraints. Another aspect would be it may not be industry specific. You cannot go in industry specific typically because you do not understand the nitty-gritties of every single industries and following the particular HR practices in a certain industry would require or would essentially at times may backfire. You also see another disadvantage, like it requires cultural fit for effectiveness. Many a time you are not part of the culture, you might not know the right things, how things are, being unfolded. So maybe you might not be able to make use of the right target or the right strategy at the right point in time. So these are certain disadvantages associated with the model, apart from potential for overemphasis on performance-based pay or even difficulty in measuring the direct impact. Now let's look into the practical implications of this particular model. And in the previous session, I looked into Google. Today, I'm going to look into Southwest Airlines, the HRM strategy, which has a direct implication to what we have discussed. So when you look into Southwest Airlines, the context is that it is recognized for its employee-first HRM approach, which has played a key role in its high customer satisfaction, stronger financial performance, if you ask me, and even to a great extent the commitment of workforce. So the company follows the best practice HRM model, prioritizing employee well-being, a strong corporate culture, and performance-driven incentives. Look into the key HR practices at Southwest Airlines. You have employment security and stability. One of the Southwest Airlines' most distinctive HR policies is its commitment to job security. So the company has never had a single layoff in its history, ensuring long-term stability and workforce commitment. You look into hiring processes, you have selecting hiring process. Selective hiring process is where Southwest Airlines follows a recruitment strategy that evaluates candidates based on skills, culture fit, and attitude. The company uses a behavioral interview process to ensure that the new hires align with the Southwest core values. Then there are self-managed teams and employee empowerment. There are high pay based on performance that we discussed just now. Southwest Airlines implements these competitive salary structures, profit sharing programs and performance-based bonuses to reward employees. So the company also offers even stock options and financial incentives for outstanding service and innovation specifically. You also see some extensive training and development associated. You see reduction of status difference as we have previously discussed. So all these typical aspect has an impact of HRM practices, strong employee engagement, high customer satisfaction, lower turnover rates being another one, and consistent business success. Now, let's look into the key HR practices that drive competitive advantage typically. When you look into this, you will see that this particular model of a high performance work practices and institutional organization, how it affects on workplace performance, you see that there are some typical aspects like worker participation. So you see job enrichment, you see teamwork, off the job training hours, employment security, all these aspects typically gives way to organizational attachment, and further it leads to workplace performance. So this is the outcome variable, the performance increases. You have some mediators where you look into the government workplace relations as a moderator to the relationship between these practices and organizational attachment. You look into professional management, you look into value adding business strategies also as significant moderators that are associating or that are contributing to that association. So typically you also see that management's labor segmentation strategy has also an effect on the workplace performance typically. So these are the typical components. You look into selective hiring and talent acquisition, you look into comprehensive training, you look into employee engagement, performance-based compensation rewards. All these factors have an impact on the business performance. So based on this understanding, we can see that high productivity, a well-trained and engaged workforce contributes to higher efficiency and performance, enabling businesses to meet operational goals and improve service delivery. Now let's quickly look into implementing a best practice HRM strategy. When you are looking into this particular strategy, you have to understand that aligning HR policies with business strategy is vital. You have to develop an employee first culture. You have to analyze the needs, you have to analyze the organizational requirements, which gives you a typical heads up towards developing an employee first culture. What is required, what is the typical lacunae. Based on that, you can actually invest in the training and career development, and finally you get to measure the HRM effectiveness using the KPIs. And finally, if you look into the challenges and adopting the best practices, you will see the same typical aspects of resistance to change. Many a time, one of the most common challenges you see in HR strategy implementation is resistance from employees and managers. So many individuals are reluctant to adopt new policies, digital tools or performance evaluation. They have high initial investment. Implementation or implementing the best HR practices requires financial investment in areas such as training, recruitment, compensation and employee benefits. So small and mid-sized businesses may struggle to allocate the necessary resources. However, while the upfront cost is high, long-term benefits, if you ask me, such as improved retention, higher productivity and reduced turnover outweigh the initial investment. And finally, there is need for organizational culture alignment. Not all HR best practices are universally applicable. Cultural differences are there. Industry-specific needs are there. Regional labor laws may impact on the effectiveness of the HR policies. Organizations must customize HR strategies to align with their workforce demographics, industry standards and geographical requirements typically. So when you look into the entire business strategy and the association with the human resource management, typically the strategic human resource management, you see that you are typically concerned with individuals, how their goals and strategies, aspirations align with the business goals or the objectives of the organization. If there is lack of sync there, this particular model also suggests in the same way that there might be resistance to change. There might be people who are not very pro towards or not very keen on adaptability or on agility. They might create barriers towards the change. So all these aspects typically lead way to your development. So whoever or whatever systems do act as barriers, they have significant impact on the learning and development strategies also. So this is what I want to relate it to. I will try to do that in the next session in a more illustrative manner with respect to a typical case study. Thank you for listening to me today. See you in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.